sunlight. Sunlight burns because it reveals. It doesn't destroy the flesh for what it is, but for what it isn't. A vampire's body imitates life through motion and hunger, yet inside, every cell is hollow, a vessel for energy that doesn't belong to it. When sunlight touches that surface, it exposes the lie. The warmth that gives life to all things turns corrosive when it meets something that feeds on absence. That's why it doesn't matter how strong, ancient, or clever a vampire becomes. Daylight always wins. It's not fire from the sky, it's truth in its purest form. In older legends, sunlight didn't instantly kill. It weakened. Skin would blister, eyes would blind, movement would slow. Over centuries, storytellers amplified that pain until it became a cleansing flame. The change wasn't just drama, it was evolution. Humanity reshaped the myth until sunlight became justice, the final proof that corruption can't walk in daylight. What most people forget is how practical that weakness is. A vampire's physiology depends on darkness to maintain balance. Their vision is built for low light, their senses tuned for silence and shade. In sunlight, the body overheats, sensory input floods, and blood, the one living thing inside them, begins to boil. They don't just burn because of divine energy. They fail because their stolen system collapses under natural heat. A creature that thrives in the absence of life cannot survive under its full presence. Fire follows the same law. The flame purifies by destroying whatever denies life. It consumes impurities and returns matter to its simplest form, ash. To the undead, that's the end of the lie. Fire doesn't distinguish between sin or sanctity. It only seeks fuel. And a vampire's flesh, deprived of true vitality, burns faster than any living tissue. In medieval beliefs, that wasn't symbolic. Cremation was the only way to make sure a vampire didn't rise again. Because the fire didn't just kill the body, it severed the spirit from its anchor. But what few know is that fire affects more than their skin. The heat disrupts the supernatural current flowing through their bodies. Flames drain the stolen energy faster than the vampire can replenish it, cutting off their strength and leaving them immobilized long before they ignite. That's why even the hint of fire makes them recoil. It's not fear, it's instinct. They feel the imbalance unraveling inside. Sunlight and fire share the same essence, purity. Both exist to cleanse, to return things to their rightful state. To a vampire, that means extinction. They can hide underground, move at night, or live beneath storms that block the light, but the world doesn't forget. The planet turns, the dawn comes, and the flame still waits. No matter how immortal they think they are, one rising sun or one careless spark can end centuries of hunger in seconds. And yet, light and heat are only the beginning. The next forces that undo a vampire are older than science, built from faith itself, forged in belief stronger than any weapon ever made, holy symbols. Objects of faith hold power not because of the metal, the shape, or the ritual that made them, but because belief leaves residue. Human conviction creates energy, and that energy rejects everything that doesn't belong to life. When a cross burns a vampire's skin, it's not the symbol itself doing the damage. It's the faith of the hand holding it. A crucifix, a talisman, a prayer scroll, all carry the same charge, the vibration of living faith. To something that exists through negation, that energy feels like acid. In ancient Europe, the cross became dominant because Christianity spread faster than the old pagan faiths. But in other lands, different symbols worked the same way. In Chinese lore, priests used written seals soaked in cinnabar to trap jiangshi, the hopping corpses that fed on life. In Japan, monks painted sutras on doors to stop the hungry dead from crossing. Every culture built its own tool to weaponize faith, not religion, but belief itself, holy water. It's the physical version of the same principle. Water is the foundation of life. When it's blessed, it becomes a living current carrying intention. To touch it as a vampire is to collide with the very concept of renewal. The droplets crawl over the skin like venom, searing through layers that no longer belong to the natural order. In stories, it hisses, burns, or smokes. But what's really happening is spiritual short-circuiting. The energy that fuels the undead can't coexist with anything that radiates cleansing. The older the water's blessing, the stronger the pain. Some myths even say that a vampire submerged in holy water doesn't drown. It dissolves, as if life itself refuses to hold its shape around corruption. Consecrated Ground. No weapon is needed here. A church, a temple, or even an ancestral shrine hums with low, constant power. Years of prayer and human emotion soak into the soil, creating an invisible pressure that living people find comforting, and vampires find unbearable. The closer they get, the heavier it feels, like gravity thickening around their body. Cross the threshold and the curse collapses inward. The air steals their strength, their senses distort, and their mind fills with static. The ground doesn't burn them, it pushes them out, rejecting what's foreign. That's why cemeteries with sanctified borders are safe. The soil recognizes the difference between a soul resting and a body refusing to. In all these cases, belief is the weapon. Faith doesn't need to understand what a vampire is to destroy it. It only needs to be sure that it shouldn't exist. And while sunlight and fire burn the body, faith burns the lie. Yet there are forces even simpler than belief, things that don't rely on spirit or prayer, but on the natural purity of the living world itself. Garlic. At first glance, it sounds absurd that a plant could terrify the undead, but garlic was never chosen by chance. It's a purifier, one of the oldest symbols of vitality humans have ever used. Its oils release sulfur compounds that were believed to drive out disease, rot, and evil spirits. To a vampire, whose entire body is a contradiction between death and motion, that purity feels like poison. In old villages, people hung garlic above doors not to mask a smell, but to remind the air of life. It's the scent of blood that's still warm, of lungs that still breathe. Garlic radiates everything a vampire can't imitate. In Eastern Europe, healers carried it as protection against decay. In the Balkans, it was mixed with salt and smeared across windows to stop the dead from entering. The myth endures because the logic still works. The living defend themselves with symbols of vitality, and garlic is life-made scent. Its energy repels anything that survives on absence, and when pressed against undead flesh, that clash becomes unbearable, an invisible burn that pushes the creature back into shadow. Silver. No element has been feared by dark beings longer than this one. Silver represents the moon, the cold twin of the sun, yet it carries the same purity. It reflects truth without distortion. That's why mirrors once used polished silver instead of glass. They captured light faithfully, revealing whatever was real. When silver touches a vampire, the purity of that reflection becomes physical. The metal exposes what the creature tries to hide, the absence of life. It's said that the touch burns, not because of heat, but because the soul behind it can't bear to see itself. For centuries, priests blessed silver blades and bullets not for ceremony, but to bind intent to truth. The moonlight infused in it was believed to carry the echo of creation. To an undead body, that echo sounds like judgment. It's why silver works against werewolves, spirits, and vampires alike. It forces a confrontation between corruption and clarity. Mirrors. They reveal what exists. But for a vampire, nothing reflects. It's not that the glass ignores them, it's that the mirror can't find what isn't there. In early folklore, reflections were thought to hold fragments of the soul. When you looked into one, you weren't just seeing your body, you were confirming your presence in the living world. Vampires, stripped of that essence, simply don't register. The mirror isn't blind, it's honest. Modern versions of the myth updated the idea. Cameras, security lenses, even phone screens fail to capture them. Machines that depend on light can't process what has no natural vibration. In practical terms, a vampire could move unseen through recordings and photographs, not through magic, but through absence. There's no reflection, no trace, no proof, only the shadow of what once was. These are the physical truths of the curse. The living world leaves fingerprints on everything it touches, and vampires leave none. Garlic, silver, and mirrors don't destroy them the way sunlight does, but they expose what they are. Reminders that imitation can't replace existence. And if faith and purity already burn the skin, what remains are the rules that burn the mind, laws written deep into the curse itself. Invitation. For all their power, vampires can't cross a threshold without permission. A doorway, by itself, holds no magic. What matters is ownership. A home isn't just wood and stone, it's layered with intent, protection, and memory. Every person who lives there leaves behind energy, and that energy forms a barrier between what belongs inside and what doesn't. A vampire's curse binds it to those laws. It can roam freely in the open world, but it can't invade willfully claimed space. The moment someone says, "Come in," the barrier breaks. That single phrase transfers a fragment of control. The invitation isn't symbolic, it's legal in the spiritual sense. It's the exchange of authority that allows the dead to walk among the living without resistance. Some tales say a vampire can trick or compel someone to speak the words, but never force entry outright. The curse demands balance. The predator feeds only when the prey grants access, even unknowingly. It's a rule older than religion, consent written into the fabric of magic. Without it, the world would drown in chaos. The counting curse. While the invitation rule governs boundaries, this one governs order. In ancient Europe and Asia alike, there are records of vampires, demons, and restless spirits tormented by compulsion. Scatter grains of rice, poppy seeds, or sand in their path, and they would stop to count everyone. They'd do it endlessly, trapped by the need to finish until the sun rose and burned them away. To modern minds, it sounds comical, but it reflects a deeper truth: control. The undead are creatures of obsession. They need rhythm, heartbeat, breath, repetition to mimic life. When faced with chaos, they cling to pattern. Counting becomes a form of survival, a desperate act to restore order where their curse stripped it away. In folklore, hunters use this to trap vampires outside homes, throwing seeds across doorways. The creature's hunger lost to its compulsion, it would kneel in the dirt, whispering numbers until dawn ended the struggle. These final weaknesses aren't about pain or purity, they're about rules. They prove that the curse itself is built on structure, not chaos. A vampire isn't free. It's bound by invisible contracts that define what it can touch, where it can walk, and how long it can exist before nature reclaims its debt. Every power it holds comes with an equal restraint. The faster the hunger, the stronger the chain. That's the real tragedy of immortality. Not burning in sunlight, not fearing faith, but knowing you'll never truly be free. The world allows your existence only under its own terms. Break the rule, and it breaks you. And whether it's a flame, a prayer, or a single grain of rice, everything living still remembers what you are: a walking mistake.